Welcome to The Stacks, a podcast about books and the people who read them. I'm your host, Tracy Thomas. Our guest today is Marlon Peterson, the author of Bird Uncaged, an abolitionist freedom song. In addition to being an author, Marlon is a prison abolitionist and gun violence activist. You might also know Marlon as the host of the Decarcerated podcast and from the TED Talk he gave in 2017. Today, we talk about possibilities and the way we can embrace people who are incarcerated and the work of abolition. The Stacks Book Club pick for June is The Undying, a meditation on modern illness by Anne Boyer. We will discuss the book on the show on Wednesday, June 30th with Michael Denzel Smith. The main way I'm able to make this podcast is through the support of listeners who join the Stacks Pack on Patreon. They contribute $5 a month and earn perks like our virtual book club, a community of book lovers and discounts on the Stacks merch. And in exchange for their generosity, I am able to make the Stacks week in and week out. If you love this show, please consider joining the Stacks Pack. Head to patreon.com/thestacks to join. I want to give a quick thank you to some of our newest members of the Stacks Pack: Sandra Wiebe, Alexandra, Andrienne Breton, Joe, Lauren Paiva, Loretta Cambrone, Chiara Murray, Sio, Carrie Watson, and Lauren Herber. Thank you all so much. You make this show possible. All right, let's get to my conversation with Marlon Peterson. All right, everybody, I'm so excited. Today I am talking with Marlon Peterson, author of Bird Uncaged. It's your first book, a memoir. Marlon, welcome to the Stacks.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. It's, you're one of the first interviews I'm having, so I'm definitely excited, nervous, all the things.
Oh, good. Well, if it makes you feel better, I also am nervous. I'm nervous before every interview I do. And so you're not alone in the nerves, though I did not write a book. So I can't relate on that part. So let's just dive in. In about 30 seconds or so, can you tell us about Bird Uncaged?
Yeah. So the full title is Bird Uncaged, an abolitionist freedom song. And yeah, so it's a memoir of sorts. I like to say a memoir of sorts, in that it obviously documents my life growing up in, Brooklyn as a, son of Caribbean immigrants, my journey to incarceration or through that. But more so, I think it's a book about the very everyday traumas that Black folks, who experience, but also as it relates to how systems impact them. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's a book that's dealing with interpersonal and internal things, but not letting systemic, racism and all those things off the hook. Like, I don't want it, just not just a Black boy got better because he, read a couple of books. It's a Black boy struggling into a man, but also interrogating himself.
Yeah.
As well as interrogating the system as a whole.
Yeah, that's really well said. There are a lot of different pieces working throughout the book. Your story, the systems, your family, which I want to get to. But kind of where I want to start is one of the things we learn about you pretty early on in the book is that you always were a writer. You always enjoyed writing. You were always writing things. I'm curious how long you knew you wanted to write this book. And then once maybe you thought of that a long time ago, or maybe you thought of it right before you started writing it. And I want to know, how hard was it to actually write it all down?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started writing as a little kid, just in terms of in school. And, I had a teacher that sort of exposed me to that. Oh, Marlon, you could write. I didn't know what that meant at that time. I thought I could do good on tests. That's what I thought, right? Get good essays and book reports. But I think I was incarcerated at 19. And the writing there sort of started through journaling. I think the first time I realized I wanted to write this book was about 2004 or 2005. And I actually started to write the book then. I have typewritten notes of the actual 20 pages I wrote back then. That's when I first started. But, it's been a journey since then. So I started then. And at the time, I felt as if I was about 24, 25, somewhere around there. And I was like, I'm too young. Who am I to be writing a book about myself at this age, right? I mean, I've been through some stuff, but I felt like I hadn't lived enough life to write anything substantial and worthwhile. But I started writing it itself probably, it's a 4-year process of writing a book, into where you have a finished product now.
So it took you 4 years from when you sat down to actually write this book this time. Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm trying to decide. I have so many things that I want to talk to you about. And, I'm looking at my notes as I talk to you and I'm like, shit, how are we going to get all this in? So I guess we should just dive in and then we'll see how it goes. Because I want to talk about your story, but I also want to sort of talk about the criminal justice system. And because you're also an activist and you also do so much speaking. So I guess we can start there, which is in all the speaking that you've done around incarceration and your experiences and the things that you've seen and the people that you've met and the ways that you've impacted the system. How is that different for you than writing this story?
I think, yeah, it's a very good question. Actually, I really appreciate that question because I think that's one of the purposes of this book. I think this is my opportunity to be as honest as I can ever be about it. Right. And I'm not saying I've been dishonest, but in certain spaces, you don't have that much time to go into as much detail. It's not about me really telling the details of my life and how and why I'm here in front of this audience or on this panel or what have you. And, it's a book that really in so many ways is being very critical of people who may consider themselves, criminal justice advocates or activists, right, and all that sort of stuff, right? And the last thing I see, this is the thing that I think is really important. What makes it different? I don't let America off the hook in this book, right? I don't let it off the hook, and I make it painstakingly difficult to miss that, right? And I give you much detail, and I think I try to give as much like a texture to it and layers in a way that you don't always have time in a 30-minute talk or 45-minute talk or, whatever, right? A 5-minute interview on a whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And it's it also allows me to weave my entire experience, but I want to say our entire experiences into it. That's why it's big. I spend time with my family and those dynamics that leads to the criminal legal space in ways that most people don't think about these connections, So yeah, I mean, it's definitely the most honest way, my most honest description, analysis of the criminal legal system, but also of Americanism.
Right. You said you started writing this the first time, maybe in 2004, 2005. We're now, I don't know, 15 years later or something. I'm bad at math. So let's say maybe more than that.
And all that,
yeah. Is this book what you dreamed it would be? Is what you do have? Is what we're getting? Is this what you thought was the process? What you thought it would be?
When I started writing this book, I remember speaking to like my editor and, agent. I was like, I was just always intentional that I didn't want to write a book that was this sort of look what this guy went through and look at him now, da-da, and then we all clap at the end and walk away, right?
Right.
I was very conscious about that. And so when I see the finished product now, I love what I wrote. And the reason why I can tell you I love what I wrote because I know I didn't let myself off the hook in the book. Right. And that was important for me is that, oftentimes, it can happen particularly in the memoirs genre where the writer, the author, whomever don't do enough self-critical work.
Yeah.
I mean, we have examples now, definitely, the big homie Kiese is obviously one of those people, but I didn't want to let myself off the hook. And particularly because, I have a complicated experience, right? You could be happy for me in some instances of the book. You could be mad at me and discuss it with me in some instances in the book. And I wanted to write a book that explains, like, when people see me now and, I'm in all these rooms, I get to give talks and all, like you mentioned, like, TED Talk and all them type of things. People want to believe that a finished product is finished.
Right.
And in this book, I don't give you the impression that, this is a finished product, but it's not finished. And that's how everyone's life is. That's pretty much how all our experiences are. That's how it should be. That's why the latter half of the book title is an abolitionist freedom song, because abolition is a politic of constantly in self-interrogation for the most part, right? That's the only way you can see that a world without police or prison is possible, if you can see that in terms of how you're contributing to that place. And for it, I wanted my book to be in so many ways I wanted this book, my life, to be sort of a case study in how that can be and how difficult it is, but also how amazingly beautiful it can be when we sort of get to certain different realizations in our lives.
What part of the process of writing this, of the self-interrogation, of the, not letting yourself off the hook, as you say, What part of that came easily, and what parts of writing this was really hard?
When I was a kid, young adult, 18, 17, somewhere around, I speak about, how, instance where a couple of friends of me and my friends pretty much did sexually assault a woman, right? We didn't go, all the act didn't happen, but we did enough that we mentally assaulted her, right? And it was hard because I was looking at myself, and and for what it's worth, when you write, you question who you are at this moment. Like, is this my politics? I say, I'm this type of person. I have this certain politic in life, and I try to advocate, and I write, and I do all this sort of stuff. I create programs. But like, damn, bro, this is what you were a part of. And it took you years before you even mattered. Like, it didn't bother me until probably within the last couple of years that happened. And I knew it happened.
Right.
And so that was one thing that was, part was difficult. I think and there are many instances where it's difficult. When I go back into my early childhood years, it's, that I had not thought about literally until I was writing. I said, oh my God, this happened. And it was like in a recess of my mind that I had somehow buried. But I think some parts that were easy, it was easy for me, the parts where when I speak about influence of like music in my life, right? And music, I'm not a musician. I don't consider myself a musician, but I play a musical instrument, a steel pan. But I know it's parts of it, or even like the music I speak about when I'm inside, when I was in prison, and how I would have these like club nights where I would be in my cell and I would, turn my cell into a club in a sense, right? And I'll play like imagine I'm somewhere else. I think the parts of the book that were easy for me is where I know I imagined, where in my past I was still imagining possibilities that weren't in front of me.
Right.
And that was dreaming.
You just took me exactly where I want to go, which is one of the themes of the book is imagination. And it's a huge theme of the book. I think it's probably one of the things that runs throughout. We see this when you're a child. We see this when you're incarcerated. We see this with you now reflecting as the author leading us through this book. And you say that imagination is there to create hope and freedom and fun. And I'm wondering, especially while you were incarcerated, that's what you were using it for. I'm wondering now, how are you using your imagination?
I'm still, author is one of the things I do. I'm thankful I can add that to my, list of things. But I think about collectively about issues of trauma and incarceration, more so on not only in a local sense, but on a global sense. And I think about the possibilities I imagine where, marginalized folks, and in the legacy of other people who've come before me, right? I'm not doing anything new, are able to build this collective global power to sort of not only just to disrupt and dismantle these systems that cage us. And here's the thing, when I think about systems that cage us, I'm definitely talking about jails and prisons, but I'm also talking about the mindsets that cage us too, that prevent us from building this collective global power. And that's hard work, but the thing about, like, I know it's possible. And the reason why I know it's possible, I've experienced situations where death was probably the better option, was the only thing imaginable. Or not even some of this death where there was no hope in sight. And I've seen people, and I'm only talking about me, I've seen people do things that we might want to consider superhuman in a sense. And I'm not even talking about any sort of muscular strength, right? And I just know what humans are capable of. And I know we're capable, particularly Black and brown folks. I mean, the book is also, I'm talking to us in many ways, and I know what we're capable of. And in my last couple of years of life, in the last couple of years, that was crazy. In my last couple of years, I've been able to do a bit of traveling in different parts of the world, and in the same sort of hoods that like I grew up in. I've been in prisons in other parts of the world, and I've been in community with a lot of people doing amazing things, and they just give me that I know what is possible for us. Because I know we're already doing it on an everyday level. I just don't know if we always like really pinpointed like this is what we're doing. We can create this power collectively. I just know it's so possible.
Where did you go?
So I've been to South Africa, and I've been in communities there where gun violence is a huge issue. I've also been in prisons there. I've been in a particular experience in South Africa, in a town, a rural area called Magaliesburg, where the women have pretty much created a community out of unimaginable terror, where like because of, once again, how capitalism works and all that, and imperialism works, they, all the men in this village were pretty much killed because they were striking against, they were working in mines. And so their husbands, fathers, sons, whatever, brothers, and these women have created a whole new community out of, all that terror, schools and hospitals and agriculture in terms of agribusiness for themselves in this rural community out of nothing really. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that just stands out to me. But I've also been to, similar situations in Ghana. I've been to Trinidad, where my family is from, where I consider home. I've spent a lot of time in communities there that are dealing with a lot of harm and trauma, been to prisons there. And, I've been to, completely different. I've been to Jordan and spent time in a refugee camp, in refugee camps, and seen a tremendous trauma there, but also tremendous resilience there and possibilities. You know what I mean? I'm a different type of caging in a sense, right? So, I mean, I've been to these places and I've been privileged. I'm blessed. I'm thankful being able to be in these places, but I know I've visited these places for a reason.
Right.
I know it wasn't just there just to be put this on a list. Like I saw this place,
right.
But because of my experience, it makes those travels even much more important to the work.
Right. I keep hearing you talk about possibility. I feel like you've said that a lot. And first of all, I love that word. I wish that I wish it was part of my thinking more, like thinking about possibility. It's not a word that, I don't know. It's not a word that comes to me naturally, but whenever I hear other people use it, I just love it.
You got this wonderful podcast. That's a possibility dream that is now here.
Sure. No, I think that I live lots of possibilities, but I don't ever think about it that way to myself, if that makes sense. Like there's some words like that people use that just aren't part of my own personal vocabulary, even though you could definitely apply it to the things that I'm doing. But that being said, you're talking a lot about abolition, about, a world without prisons, without police, of this possibility of this. What does that look like for humans, for Americans specifically? But I think it could translate across the world, especially in these places you're naming. But what does that look like for us on a day-to-day level? Like, how can we be working towards abolition in our own selves and our own relationships?
Yeah, definitely asking different questions. I believe we learn more from questions than we do from answers. I often tell people or implore people when they watch the news or see on their social media feed about, some harm that was done in the community, right? These two young teenagers did this thing or whatever it is, right? And they did something that's horrific, right? Instead of the impulsive reaction is that, well, they should go to jail or, I would do this to them or what have you. What would cause them to do that in the first place? Like what led them to do that? Right. And the reason why I implore people to do that, because that's hard to ask, particularly when this thing happened and may trigger something that happened to you or a friend or a family member. And that's hard work. But, that is the process of like this world that we imagine, getting to the root. There's so many people who speak to that. Angela Davis, Myron Kaba, Dr. Ruth Wilson Gilmore, they talk about getting to the root. And the way to get to the root is by asking those questions. Because when you ask those questions, you see it in so many ways, like how what these people may have been a part of is not outside the realm of possibilities of what you could be capable of if you had a certain amount of experiences. Of course, all of us aren't going to do something harmful, hurt somebody, physically and all those things. But we're capable. In the book, I speak about that. Like we're capable of it. Mm-hmm. Everyone human is, particularly you put them in a certain set of circumstances. And I'm not even including mental health into this or instabilities. I'm saying people who have a sound mind, whatever that is nowadays, but people who are sound mind, who don't have a mental illness and those sort of things. It's possible for us. And I'm not saying it's excusable. I'm not saying that we're supposed to say, well, I understand why you did it, so you get a break. That's not what I'm saying. Part of this everyday work of seeing possibilities or this abolitionist possibility is understanding that what people are doing are not superhuman things. People are doing human things because humans do these things to each other. I mean, it kind of goes to, you didn't ask this, but like when people say that's a monster, that person is a monster. When you do that, I think about Mary Shelley's, you think about Frankenstein, like a monster is created, like it was created in a certain, and that thing that this person created was not supposed to be this quote unquote monster in that book. I remember writing an essay about this some years ago, but like there was societal influences that led this person to doing this harmful thing and harmful things. And so I'm against those things. I'm against terms like that's a monster or another term like I'm trying to put my author hat on and take up my advocacy and activist hat at times, but it's hard to sort of, separate them. But a lot of my work since I've been home has been around gun violence and gun violence prevention. And, it's a term that we all use that I used to use a lot that I no longer use. And there's a term called senseless gun violence. Mm. And the reason why, particularly when it applies to, violence, community gun violence, intra-community violence, where, yes, the overt thing might have been you looked at me differently. That doesn't make no sense. Or because you got this color, that doesn't make sense. But what is very sensible is that people in certain communities who have generationally been exposed to a certain type of oppression and harm and state harm and trauma, it's very sensible that you put them in these situations that they react in harmful ways. Right. Not excusable, but it's not senseless. When you make it senseless, you take it out of the political realm.
Right.
You take the state off the hook again.
Right. Yeah. And I think when we use terms like monster we're just to be transparent, we're recording this right now during the Derek Chauvin trial and a lot of the things that, I'm not really watching. So I'm trying not to watch. It's too much for me, but we're hearing the same things that they are scared and that George Floyd was huge and a brute and all these things. And when you do that, you take away the humanity of people. You take away also like you're saying, the cause and effect. When you make someone other, then you don't have to try to relate. You don't have to try to understand. You don't have to try to see what the cause and response is, right? Or whatever. Like there's no accountability for the outside judger person, if you will, whether that's actually the state or whether that's just you and me talking about something fucked up that our friend said, right? Like you take away that accountability for the people who are passing judgment. This sort of ties into that. In your book, you're very clear in your book that the reason that you were incarcerated was that you were part of a crime that ended with 2 people being killed and 2 people being shot. And, there's no question of your involvement. You're very upfront about that. And it made me think a lot about this idea of innocence as a prerequisite for a public rallying cry when it comes to prison reform, that we're always being told, this person doesn't deserve prison, as if people who do commit crimes do, or that the conditions of prison are acceptable for people who have committed crime. And I'm wondering what you have to say as someone who has experienced life inside prison, who was incarcerated for about a decade. Just over a decade?
Just over a decade.
Over a decade. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering what you think about this idea of innocence being a prerequisite for this public support of prison reform.
Well, I think innocence is important. I just have a friend who did 24 years who was innocent. He came home just the other day and so innocence is important. Obviously, it is a thing. But the problem with it is that we believe that the way to deal with guilty people is to harm them more.
Right.
Right. So here's a better way to even answer the question is answer your questions for your audience listeners. Like, how many of you listening now have ever heard prison jokes about somebody being sexually assaulted or physically assaulted? And we laugh and we joke. Right. And I'm included in that. Right. In terms of who laugh and joke about those things. But those things are based on real life. Mm-hmm. The likelihood of being sexually assaulted or physically abused in prison, especially for women, but definitely for all people, men included, and trans folks in prison as well. Like those things are very real possibilities. So we know that you go to this place, you could be hurt more, right? And the reason why I ask folks to even just sort of contemplate that and think about that for a second is that prison is purportedly, ostensibly supposed to be one of them places where you get better, right? That's how we say it, right? Rehabilitation, right? You need to get better. You need to work on this thing that you're, this act or this behavior. Well, that's not the place where you want people to get better. People get better despite prison. People don't get better because of prison. You know what I mean? And so the idea that in our society as humans that to prevent harm from happening again, we will send people to be harmed. That's what we're saying. I mean, we don't mean I think about it like that, but that's what we're saying. Because you harm people, I'm going to send you someplace to get harmed so you get better.
Right.
That's actually not sensible.
Right.
Right.
That is senseless.
Yes, that is senseless. I mean, don't get me wrong. We can do better at creating ways and mechanisms for people who need to be extracted and be taken away because they will commit more harm. I'm just saying that the way that we've come up with and the way that we've, the mechanism that we're accustomed to, prisons aren't the place. So whether you're guilty or innocent, that ain't the place to be. And here, think about it. Prison statistics always showed high levels of recidivism. And there's many reasons why people, that may be. But have you ever considered maybe one of the reasons why is because prisons don't fix the thing?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's kind of like maybe prisons aren't the thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, and the thing about it, the other part of it is this. Even if you think about what's happening now with the Derek Chauvin case, is that they are trying to create a story that this person was probably guilty about something,
right,
which is why it was okay for them to die.
Right.
You know what I mean? And maybe he was guilty of using drugs.
So
is that a prerequisite for death?
Right.
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 So, yeah. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and make one thing different about the incarceration system in America, what would you change today?
Magic wand.
I mean, you can't be like, I would just get rid of it. Like you have, obviously that would ruin. I mean, that's what probably you would do if you could do that. But within the system a little bit.
One thing that probably get into the weeds a little bit is I would get rid of what's called the felony murder statute. And the felony murder statute is kind of like, for what it's worth, that got me convicted. So when I was first arrested, I was facing a death penalty in New York. New York at the time still had a death penalty, and a felony murder statute is that, well, while in the commission of, if you were in the commission of a felony, in this case, a robbery, and a murder happened, even if you didn't shoot the person or kill the person, everybody who knew about it, who wanted to be a part of the robbery, is now culpable of the homicide. And that's an old law that comes back from old common law times. And in many other parts of the world, including parts of London where these things come from, they're no longer in place. And I think that's one of the things I would get rid of, because it's a catch-all. That's why when you hear about, particularly here, I'm in New York, where you'll have these like, quote unquote, gang takedowns. And you'll hear about 100 and some odd people getting arrested. Everybody from the person who might have been selling the drugs, a big kingpin, to the person who might have sold one bag of drug, they're all going to jail. Right. And obviously there's a whole thing about drugs being criminalized. That's a whole other conversation. But, it's a way to catch Black people and brown people. It's a way to catch us all in the system. So I would get rid of that immediately. Okay.
And then hopefully just one more question on this, but who knows? I can't be trusted to just say one more question about anything. What would you tell people who are not necessarily connected to the prison system immediately? So maybe not a family member or a close friend who's been incarcerated. How can they help? How can they be in service to the millions of people who are behind bars and the millions of people who are related to, closely connected to, and are also serving a sort of sentence? How can they help?
I mean, I think on an interpersonal level, you can write people, right? You can send them energy. I call it energy. If you're able to, obviously, if you're able to and you feel safe enough to do so, always, throw those things in there. Communicate with people, particularly if you have a friend or a family member behind bars. And it doesn't have to be every day or every week. It could be consistency, and consistency be like every 6 months, I'm gonna write them, every 3 months or whatever it is, or every week. But I think that's one of the ways to send energy. But I also think I wrote this book for people to, there are many points throughout the book where I think I've had a few people who read it and be like, wow, intervention could have happened here. Mm-hmm. Or the education system, this could have happened here when this happened to you as a kid. Or that should have happened there, right? I think people can do a better job at looking at the nuance of people who are in these places. And that doesn't mean that you have to communicate with somebody in prison. That means that in the conversation that you have about a thing that's happening on TV or on the news or in your neighborhood, do the hard work of searching for the nuance. Always look for the nuance, because, that's what I had to do when I was inside, because believe it or not, just because I was also convicted in prison, all that sort of stuff, I also had to see the humanity in people around me.
Right.
And,
right.
And that's why I always say prison is a place where I learned and really fell in love with humans. Right? Because I saw humans at the absolute worst. I spent a decade with people, including myself, who are at their absolute worst. And I still saw them laugh. And I still saw them want to write birthday cards for their kids and, help each other out, learn how to read or play music. Like I saw all that sort of stuff and play Monopoly. I just, I saw people do all those things. Right. And it was hard for me. I want people to understand, just because you go to jail doesn't mean that, you're amongst all the people that are just like you, so it's just comfortable. No, I had to get used to people too. People who were different religions than me, right? Or at the time, or this other part of it, I don't know if I get, it's funny, like I can't remember all the details, but in the book I speak about a sexual assault that happened to me as a kid. And I speak about it in the fact that reason why I didn't tell anybody that it happened to me, I kept it to myself for 8 years. Reason why I didn't say one of the reasons why I didn't say anything to anybody, because I didn't want people to think I was gay. And the reason why I speak about that in a way, because in a larger conversation around cages, that homophobic cage or the cage of homophobia was one of the things that harmed me more. That cage harmed me more because I didn't get the help that I could have gotten as a 14-year-old kid. But I'm bringing that into the conversation now because it was through prison that notion, that sick, I don't want to call it, but that cage of homophobia is where I was able to dust that off. And it wasn't because necessarily I was around people who were queer, who were gay all the time. Yes, I was. But I finally sat back and really saw humanity in all its senses. And not saying that these people were without humanity, but what I mean is that, like, I was able to dust off stereotypes about people and my own prejudices by being around everybody you can imagine.
Right.
And I was also, in so many ways, I was able to release myself from different cages while in that cage.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and talk more. Valentine's Day is upon us and I've got love on the brain. Love for books, duh, of course. Hello. Did you forget what podcast you're listening to? I love bringing you all great reads, exclusive author interviews, and behind the scenes book gossip. But I can only do that with your support over on Patreon and Substack. Our Stacks Patreon community, also known as the Stacks Pack, is where you can go for book club meetups, a private, very active Discord, and a year-long mega reading challenge to help you achieve all your reading goals. Plus, you also get that monthly bonus episode. Now, over on the Substack, you can subscribe to my newsletter, Unstacked, where I keep the book conversations going. I also give you a healthy dose of sports and pop culture, definitely some hot takes happening over there. And again, that bonus episode. If you don't have a few dollars to spare, don't worry. There are free options on the Substack and the Patreon to get you a little extra Stacks magic. Making this podcast is a total team effort, and by supporting my Patreon and my Substack, you allow me to support my amazing team that makes the show possible every single week. So if you or your friends are looking to meet other book lovers and support this indie podcast, come hang out with me on Patreon, Substack, or both. I would love to have you. And since we're talking about love, you can gift subscriptions to the Patreon and the Substack for that special reader in your life. For the Stacks Pack, head to patreon.com/thestacks. And for the newsletter, head to traceythomas.substack.com. And also, there are links to both in the show notes. Okay, see you in the Stacks. I want to talk about the title and the cover. I think that there is a kind of a cute story about the cover. So I want to hear where the cover came from. And also, you kind of talked about the title already, so we don't have to talk about the title, but we can. But I want to talk about the cover. That's what I want to talk about. Tell us about it.
The title, the cover. So, the cover, I now have locks. So in the cover, I don't have locks on it. So that's an older, so there's a couple of stories about that. I know the one we get into. I'm gonna get to that. I want to save that. Good part. But that picture was taken for a whole nother reason years ago in front of the building I grew up in, right? I moved from that building when I was 10 or 11, but it was taken in front of that building. So it's sort of like a full circle. But the other part of it is really fun and loving and sweet and makes me smile is that my my great niece, you believe I got a great niece, but my great niece, Logan, who's 6, I had a couple of options for the cover and colors and all that sort of stuff. So I said, let me send it to experts. So I sent it to her and she chose that cover. She's like, that's the one I like. And that was the cover I chose because she chose it. You know, my niece, I mean, that's my heart, right? And that's my little homie. She got a lot of energy. She's one of the feistiest little people I know. And she makes me happy. You know what I mean? And in the book, honestly, I speak about my nephew, who's her father, right? My nephew, who, you know, he is super important in my life and my journey. I speak about him. He's only, other than my mother, he's the only person I have an actual picture of in the book. And that's his daughter. And he's like she's an extension of him in so many ways. So, you know, it felt good. It felt right that she's the one that picked the cover for the book. My little, I call her Logie. Hey, Logie.
I love that. I love that story. You posted a video of your family as you were pulling the books out of the arcs out of a box or something. Has your family read it? What do they think?
Yeah, my family don't read books like that. No? So my sister read it, and I'm going to speak about that in a second. And the reason why I brought that up almost in jest, but me writing a book is a thing that is foreign to my family. Like, you know, I don't come from a family of academics, activists, organized, none of that. We just, you know, we don't come from that.
Right.
We come from other things, but we're not that. You know, we're not big book readers. I mean, members of my family aren't big book readers, at least my immediate family. And that's not no knock on them because they're good for life. They're great life learners and leaders and teachers. But I will say the book, I wanted the book to, we have, just like any family, Black families particularly, we all got sort of trauma and a whole bunch of shit that's in there. And it has thus far served as a catalyst to speak about things that we don't talk about. You know, in the book, the first chapter of the book is called Hiding. And it speaks about me, but it speaks about in so many ways how, you know, my mother's little girl had to hide physically because how, you know, Eurocentric notion of what prettiness looked like, even in a West Indian country, predominantly Black country, you know, how that caused her to hide in so many ways, or coming here and then being immigrants and not having, you know, documentation, how they had to hide. And, you know, and those things lead to so many, like how I hide and how I hid my own trauma from people. Right. And it's opening up conversations, you know, my brother and I, who, you know, we as young folks, we didn't have a good relationship. And I speak about that a little bit in the book, but like it's opened up opportunities to talk about those things. You know, I dedicated a book to the younger version to myself and also to my parents, because I know their stories haven't been told either. I know their stories I know my little version of me, Marlo's story is now being told, but I know my parents' story hasn't been told. Maybe I'll do that at some point in the future. But, you know, it's opening up conversations. And for my sister, who is the one who read it, she read it in a couple of days. She read maybe like 2-3 days. She read the book. I only have one sister, and she's 11 years older than me. Played a great role in raising me too as a little kid. It's opened up things for her in her own life. You know, and I'm happy that it's doing that work because, you know, as a writer, you know, you're writing for the public gaze. But, you know, I wrote this book, I knowing that the public would read it, but I wrote it with certain people in mind. And those people in my family are the people I had in mind. Also because, I mean, they're the ones that were with me through all the trauma and drama, the ones that had to deal with my trauma and drama.
Right. I'm glad that they read it. I'm glad your sister read it. You talked about the younger version of yourself. What do you think that younger you would say to you now?
I'm not gonna cry, but I think Marlo. I refer to the younger version of me as Marlo because that's the name they used to call me Marlo and not Marlon. I don't know. To be short, I think Marlo would say thank you, thank you for caring about me. And, you know, I don't want to give people the impression that I come from an uncaring family or anything like that. But, you know, I think as a kid, I suffered a lot in silence. And I think I always wanted needed people to hear me, even though I didn't know how to express it. And I think now, just seeing it, I think Marlo would feel happy that I didn't forget about him and that I'm finally showing him off.
You might not cry. I might cry. One of us might cry. Okay, we're going to transition a little bit just to kind of the process of writing your book. And this is a very important question to me, which is, how do you like to write? How many hours a day? How often? Is there music or no? Are you in your home? Are you out in the world? And this is the important part. Do you have snacks or beverages or rituals?
Okay, so first of all, how often do I write? I'm the best at being inconsistent.
Okay.
I always hear people, I was prepared for these talks. And I always hear authors say things. I wake up in the morning right before I get my first cup of tea and I sit down, or I do this at night. Man, y'all are so good at that. I'm the most inconsistent. I get my best writing done in the late hours, though. I could be honest with you. Late hours. I think I developed that habit from writing in jail when it was the quietest. So I do that. It has to be music, Tracy. When I say it has to be, I can't write without music. And music is super important to me. And not so much that I got to hear the lyrics, but I got to hear rhythm.
Okay.
I need to bop my head. When I'm writing and creating some of my best words, that I'm like bopping my head and I'm in a rhythm. And it just has to be that way. And in terms of snacks, I'm real hood sometimes. So I like have honey barbecue chips.
Okay.
They're like the brand is Wise. I don't know, but it's the reason why, because that's the only one I really like. So I eat those. I might burn a little weed. I think that helps me too. That's just a part of it. But those are two things. The chips, I love the chips, and a little bit of weed. I've tried sometimes, like I know like Maya Angelou would, drink some, she had to have her alcohol that would help her get her stuff going. Alcohol don't do it for me, so I don't do that. I know a lot of writers use alcohol, but as inspiration, right. I don't. But even without weed, but I think the big inspiration, what I need is music. I can't, and headphones. I can't have the music playing through my speakers. I need to have headphones on.
Right in your ears.
In the ear. It's probably I'll pay for this when I get older. But I need to be able to block everything out, even like air sounds, because I can just be in the rhythm of the words. I think, it's interesting. I'm making noise. I didn't know that, but a few people who read the book so far and some of the blurbs I've had have said that it's like lyrical and poetic. And I wasn't thinking I was doing that. You know what I mean? I know I have a certain type of way I like to write, but I think I realized through some of that feedback that that's the music coming out of me and into the words. I have to absolutely have. I think I can tell you, it has to be a mixture of hip hop, soca, and reggae. It has to be those three.
Okay. I was getting ready to follow up with what music are you listening to. So thank you for preempting me. Another important question is, what's a word you can never spell correctly on the first try?
Oh, shoot. Oh, fuck. There was a word. I had a conversation with somebody about this the other day. I think the word is there. And in terms of THEIR.
Right.
I'm saying it now. I think it's not so much not spelling it right, but sometimes I forget how to spell it. And it's weird because there's only a couple of letters, but I forget how to spell it at a time. I think that's one of the words. The hardest words to remember to spell, the words to me are the shortest.
Interesting.
Words.
See, I'm the opposite. I have a really hard time with lots of letters, especially the same letter. Like a word like acknowledgement, that could give me a full heart attack. Or like a word like recommend, another one that's just too many. It's too many consonants. Like, I don't know where I'm going today. Like, I don't know how many M's I want to throw in there. Dealer's choice. If it's shorter, I don't know. That's a great question. How many C's? I have no idea. But the shorter words work for me because I can kind of just remember what they look like. When it starts to get to be a lot of letters, I'm like, I don't even know if it looks right. Like, I'll look at it and be like, I think that's right. I don't know.
Well, I'm a good speller. I get that from my mother. I get that from her. I've always kind of been a really good speller. I might be a typo king.
Okay.
I think on my Twitter hand, typos is my thing. But I'm generally a good speller. I'll give that to my moms.
Okay. I want to talk about you writing a book, because this is your first book and you're really accomplished in the activism space. You were a TED fellow. You had a podcast. You've done all these things. You're a known quantity in the activism world, but this is your first book. Do you have imposter syndrome? Do you have insecurities about entering this space? Like, can you talk about what it's like?
Are you fucking kidding me? shit. That's why I'm in therapy now. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I definitely struggle with those things of not feeling like you're not enough. That's what fundamentally that's what imposter syndrome is. And I think I struggle with it a lot because here's this thing, right? And just kind of getting deeper, but I struggle with guilt a lot. Right. And I mean, through this book, I mean, you may even see that it may even come out as an undertone. But and what I mean, like, and because I struggle with that at times, sometimes I feel I'm not deserving of. That's one thing. The other thing is that I don't know. I'm surprised when listen. I was surprised when I will tell you this story. I met Kia. You spoke about before we came on. We spoke about Kiese Lehman. That's my big homie, right? It's my bro. Right. And I remember the first time I met him in 2010. And he was still at teaching at Bass, and I had organized a trip to bring some kids from Brownsville up there. And I didn't know who he was. I just knew that he's gonna do a mini English class with these 7th graders. And I thought I know Vassar, so I know in my mind, Kiese Lehman is a white dude. Okay. And I walk into the room, and he got on, at the time when he still wore blazers and not hoodies, he wore blazers, and he had a pair of jeans at Air Force One. So I was like, you the preacher? You the professor? He's like, yeah, bro. But here's the part. He was like, I'm such a fan of your work. And I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? And from in prison, I had a blog. It's called Pens from the Pen. Actually, it's still up somewhere. You can still find it. And I used to write. That's where I would put my writings. And apparently he was reading my shit. Wow. I was like, you reading I was like, how? Whatever. But I'm always surprised when people think I am good at things. Even as a writer, even as a speaker. I mean, I think it's a struggle of like always not feeling like I'm good enough. I think that's a part of it too. And there's some trauma involved with that and all that sort of stuff too. So yeah, all the things that you say, all things I've been able to be a part of or I've been able to contribute to in the work I've been able to be a part of. I also just kind of feel like, I'm just a small person, like in a line of a lot of other people doing it, right? I'm not like, I'm just a line of people doing I'm just contributing what I could. So sometimes I feel like people say, Marlon, no, you need to do this. Or even with the book, I'm thinking if I have friends like, Kiese and Darnell and them folks who always like, Marlon, we need to hear this. Or Michael too. Michael does this, but we need to hear this from you. I'm like, why do you think I got something to say? But the way for me that I've also sort of deal with it in a helpful way is is by really meditating on what people who I care about, who I know care about me, what they say and believe in them. That's the hard thing, like really sitting back and believe in them. And they're not just saying this because, I don't know, I'm tall. I don't know. I can't think of why else, but right. I can come up with excuses for why they said it. Or they said because we just friends or whatever. But I'm getting better at listening to people who love me.
Is there something in you that shifts when you start to believe it for yourself? Like, is there a moment, someone, Darnell is telling you got to tell the story. And then at what point are you like, okay, I'm going to do it? What is that shift for you?
Honestly, it's a shift that goes back and forth. But I think the shift comes from knowing, here's the thing. I think that there's somebody else who needs to hear it. Okay. Like when they were saying that stuff about me, like one way to take it is like, oh, you're a good writer, so you should just write it. But the other part of it is more so that I know somebody else needs to hear this. And like that's even like when I give talks and all that sort of stuff or programs I've been a part of or created, like somebody else needs this. Somebody else needs to hear this. And that's what pushes me into doing it. Like I'm going to take this risk and give a damn TED talk about my life in a way I had never spoke about it in public. And you know what I mean? Like it's not about me. I think that's it. It's not about me.
So good. Okay. I know this is sort of a rude question because we're recording this before your book has even come out. So you can tell me to fuck off and that's fine. I won't take it personal. But do you know what comes next for you? And I know this is so rude because, again, we're recording this before your book has come out. So I get it.
Yeah, it might flop. I don't know.
It's not going to flop. It's going to be great. It's going to be a hit. It's a good book. You wrote a good book. You wrote an interesting book. You told a story in an interesting and different way than I feel like I mean, there are so many prison memoirs, if you will, and this is different. Mm-hmm. So I feel like for folks who are interested in it, I think people will be excited by it because it is different. And if there isn't something that you have coming next, if your next thing is like taking a vacation or like taking a nap or something, that's fine too.
Well, I mean, I don't know what's next. I mean, I plan when the borders open back up to be able to go back to Trinidad. I have a place I can go to out there and just get away from a little bit. That's what's next. I don't know. I'm gonna put this out. Why not? Why not be bold for a second?
Yeah, put it out there. Let's do it.
So I mean, one is other books. I always had a dream. I want to write Black romantic comedies, right?
Ooh.
But I love romantic comedy. That's another. This is like a fun fact about me. I love them joints. But I want to write Black romantic comedy. I've never written one or anything like that. But there's a part of me like to my possibility that I want to. But so that's one thing. But Ava DuVernay be stalking me on Instagram.
Okay. So we're trying to get her to make something with you. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I'm obviously joking. She's not stalking me, but she definitely follow me and like some posts. I don't know how that happens. I don't know nobody that be like, I'm not in that circle, but I would
Come on, Ava. Let's go, Ava. Come on. Anybody who knows Ava, please send her our way. This is very important to me because I too love a romantic comedy. Do you like romantic comedy books only, or do you like romantic comedy films?
Both.
And what is your go-to romantic comedy film? What's your favorite? What's your A1?
Oh, of course, Love Jones. I'm sorry, I'm in that. I'm a classic, but like I would read them inside. So when I was inside in prison, I would read like deep nonfiction and historical books and all that sort of stuff, and policy books. But I always have, okay, now it's time to read my some romantic novel. It's not because I don't know. I loved how human emotions connect, like from different people. I like to see that connect in its awkwardness and all that sort of how they end up making something happen out of it. And those things have happy endings. Like those things get to have happy endings. You know what I mean? And obviously, like this book, not all things get to but I like to create these happy endings from things, so, and I love watching them. So I'll just go on Netflix or Hulu and I'll just find which one. Obviously, if it doesn't pull my interest within the first 5 minutes, it's off.
Right.
But I love them joints.
Oh my gosh. I love a romantic comedy. I love Love and Basketball. What romantic comedy books do you love? Like for people who want to read some good romantic comedy books, can you like name just a few that you love?
Please don't get mad at me for this.
I will not.
I love James Patterson.
Oh my God. Is that the Notebook guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Notebook guy is Nicholas Sparks.
No. That's Nicholas Sparks. No.
I don't know.
I love that. I love the Notebook too.
I don't know any romantic comedy books. I do not read anything that's like romantic at all, but I love a romantic comedy movie, which I have talked about before. I just, for some reason, I cannot invest the time in a romantic comedy book, but I could spend the same amount of time watching 5 romantic comedy movies. I don't know.
I haven't read a romantic comedy book in a little bit now. I could be honest with you. I haven't read one in a little bit, but yeah, to me, but I can watch the movies all day.
Yes. Oh my God, the movies are so watchable
all day.
Okay, I'm going to ask you for a few more book recs. Which
I didn't put my black card on that. Sorry.
No. Anything a black person does is black. I don't want to talk about please do not come for me about a black card. Get out of my face. Okay, if for people who love your book, Bird Uncaged, what else would you recommend to them to read? Maybe not the same kind of book, but a book that's in conversation, something that you think might help them on their journey, just some things that you might think would be a good pairing.
Yeah, I think Mariam Kaba, How Will We Get There, I believe it is, the title of the book. Monty Perry's Breathe. Obviously, I would say heavy to Kiese. I mean, and because I'm not saying I'm about to shoot myself in the foot. I was about to say I'm not putting myself on their levels, but like, I think there's definitely conversations happening there. And you know what? And this is just me taking a leap because I'm actually going to be in conversation with his daughter in a couple of weeks. Well, by the time this come out around the same time, I think the autobiography of Malcolm X. I'm going to be in a conversation with his daughter at an event, a book event, but in his own too. I think his book, even though it's autobiography and there's nuance and there's questions to all that, accuracy and all those sort of things in the book, but that particular life, the story of his life that's told in that book, we sort of like romanticize Malcolm and, you know, this great leader and all that sort of stuff. But I don't think a lot of people, even in the activism world, would want somebody like him around them. Right? I mean, he has politics that obviously we would question now and all that stuff. I'm not denying that. But like, I'm talking about like where he comes from. You know what I mean? Where, like his background. Like he was a hood dude.
Right.
You know what I mean? He was a hood dude who was constantly learning and constantly growing. And that's why I say I think I'm in conversation with him. I think like it's a hood dude who's constantly growing and doing and being okay with doing it in public.
Yeah. Yeah. We did a whole episode on that book last October because I think the book turned, with Mark Lamont Hill, and we talked a little bit about, you know, that evolution and also what he could have been had he been able to live, you know, like what that would have looked like, because a lot of his politics were things that we probably don't agree with now, but you know, he didn't have the opportunity to evolve. Okay, all the people who are listening to this podcast are going to go, they're going to pick up your book, they're going to read it. What's the thing that you hope they'll keep in mind as they're reading your work?
I want to keep in mind that this book is also about them. I think that's the simplest way. I think this book is about them, whoever you are reading it. The book is also about you. I think, you know, it's my story and, you know, through a lens that I have, but I think it's relatable, right? I would say this is not a prison book. I always say this is not a prison book. It has a lot to do with prison, but it's not a prison book. I think if you read it, you get that, you know, read it and seeing where you fit into the story and how your story fits into it. And imagine your possibilities, you know? Yeah.
Okay, last one. If you could have one person, dead or alive, read your book, who would you want it to be?
Maya Angelou.
That was easy for you. Oh my gosh, most people hum and ha.
No, Maya Angelou, no question. I mean, the title, you know what I mean? Birdcage. So, like, without question. And I'm a complex dude, so I'm going to be very clear. I'm a complex dude. So Maya Angelou is one person I would want to read who's not. Like, does it only have to be one person? Can I?
Give me another person. It's fine.
I'll break the rules.
These are made up rules by me for my made up podcast that talks about books. Do whatever you want.
All right. So Maya Angelou, number one on top of the list, and Jay-Z.
Ooh. Okay. I did not see that coming. I like it.
I know you didn't see it coming.
I like it. That's that complexity. Well, Marlon, this was such a treat. Thank you so much for your time and your generous answers and just being in conversation with me. Again, the book is called Bird Uncaged, an Abolitionist Freedom Song. It's out in the world. You can get it wherever you get your books. Marlon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And my voice is the audiobook, so you get to hear my voice. And
it is?
My washed out Trinidadian accent in the book too. So you get to hear that. Okay.
I have to go listen to it. I read it physical, but now I got to go at least listen to the sample. Thank you for being here, and everyone else, we will see you in the stacks. Thank you all so much for listening, and thank you to Marlon for being my guest. I'd also like to thank Jocelyn Pedro for making this interview possible. Our June book club pick is The Undying, a meditation on modern illness by Anne Boyer, which we will discuss on Wednesday, June 30th with Michael Denzel Smith. Please make sure you're subscribed to The Stacks wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening through Apple Podcasts, please take one moment to leave us a rating and a review. For more from The Stacks, follow us on social media at The Stacks Pod on Instagram, at The Stacks Pod _ on Twitter, and check out our website, thestackspodcast.com. Sebastian Alcala is our sound editor and producer. Our graphic designer is Robin McCrite, and our theme music is from Tagirajith. The Stacks is created and produced by me, Tracy Thomas.